What's going on, YouTube? Welcome back to another video of the Point After podcast. Here today, going to be discussing the Oklahoma State Cowboys 2022 season. This is a team coming off a 12-2 performance in 2021, where they won the Fiesta Bowl after a good showing by Spencer Sanders, their quarterback, who will return this year, and a heartbreaking loss to Baylor in the Big 12 championship. Now, do I think Oklahoma State is able to make the Big 12 championship again this year? I don't think so, but I'll get to that later on. And it's nothing to discredit Oklahoma State. The Big 12 is just a mess this year. But starting with their recruiting cycle, they had a number 88 portal class, which is not that great. I think they only signed 4 or 5 guys. It was a very, very small class, which is nothing to necessarily worry about until you hear that they're only returning 37% of their defense. That's where that concern comes in. Ohio State, I think they brought in like 3 guys in the portal. They were ranked in the 60s or 50s, so don't hear that number and be scared by it or whatever. But recruiting wise, they had the number 29 class, and I'm really impressed with their recruiting class because they brought in a good amount of 4 stars. Now, they brought in 2 4-star running backs, 2 4-star wide receivers, a 4-star offensive tackle, and a 4-star quarterback who some of these guys will have an immediate impact. And then they brought in a plethora of 3 stars as well. So a good recruiting outing for Mike Gundy with Oklahoma State. But going to their offense, Spencer Sanders returns off of a 2021 season that, in my eyes, wasn't really that great. Now, statistical speaking here, it wasn't really that great. He put up 2,800 yards, but his touchdown to interception ratio was below a 2. I mean, your 20 touchdowns to 12 interceptions is not that great. 62% completion percentage can also be improved. Now, he did rush for, I think, 6 touchdowns. So there is improvement to be had there. And is Spencer Sanders a bad quarterback? I don't think so. I think he just needs to play more consistently and play ultimately better, because a lot of this season is going to come down to him. They returned 3 of their 5 offensive linemen. They brought in 3 transfers after losing a bunch of offensive linemen to the transfer portal. One guy they brought in from USC, and then Tyrone Weber, a 4-star offensive tackle that I mentioned a second ago. He comes in and could see some immediate playing time, depending on how he has progressed through fall camp and if injuries arise and anything of that nature. Ollie Gordon is another running back to look out for. He's the 4-star, one of the 4 stars coming in. I think he could play an immediate role. He showed up in the spring. And then 4-star wide receiver Talon Shetron, I believe is how you pronounce it. He should come in and have an immediate impact. Presley coming back is their leading receiver. He caught 50 balls last year, which is double what the number 3 receiver caught last year. And Presley was number 2. So offensively, they should be all right. They returned 70%, most of that being Spencer Sanders. They lost their RB1, lost their wide receiver 1. So, I mean, they really only replaced 2 guys offensively plus the offensive lineman, but I think the offensive line should be okay. The struggle here with Oklahoma State is going to be in the defense. You lose 6 of your top 8 tacklers. Like I said, you're only bringing back 37% of your production. You lose your defensive coordinator in Jim Knowles, who went to Ohio State. Luckily, you're able to land Derek Mason, who's the former Vanderbilt coach, and then at Auburn last year with Brian Harsin. Not changing any of Jim Knowles' schemes. I think they're still running a 3-3-5 or a variation of a 3-3-5. He said he wanted to keep the attacking mindset. He didn't want to change anything just to make a smoother transition, which is kind of what Brian Dable Bill O'Brien did with Alabama when he came. He kept their offense and has just tweaked it a little bit. That's what Derek Mason's doing here with Oklahoma State. Because what you need, the last thing you need on defense that returns 37% production is to change everything from last year and make them learn something and completely new, especially when linebacker Mason Cobb has already stated that he's finally getting to a point where the game is slowing down for him. And at that level, the speed of the game and being able to play slow and not think, that's ultimately the difference maker. Speaking of defensive line, though, Colin Oliver returns after a freshman year that got him all-conference honors, or maybe all-American honors. Either way, he had 11.5 sacks, which is really, really good for a freshman. That's basically 1 per game. And then you only return 1 of your 5 defensive backs, so that's a little concerning. But when you flip to their schedule, it's not all that concerning. Their over/under win total is set at 8.5. You open up with Central Michigan, Arizona State, and Arkansas Pine Bluff. All three of those should be wins. Your toughest game there would be Arizona State. Then you go to Baylor. I thought Baylor came to town, but you go to Baylor. And even though it's a conference rematch last year, they're going to have that kind of riding on them. I'm pretty high on Baylor this year. I think Baylor has an edge over Oklahoma State. I could see this being a 50-50 game, but being at Baylor, I'm going to have to give that one to Baylor. One, because it's week 4. You're still kind of, and you haven't really played anybody that great to this point. You haven't really had to, I don't think you're going to be in a position where you have to clutch up and truly win a game like you will at Baylor. Baylor had already played BYU at this point, so even if Baylor's sitting at 1 loss, I still like Baylor in this game. I'm sorry. Then you go Texas Tech, TCU, Texas. All 3 of those are very winnable. I think that Texas Tech game is definitely a win. TCU's a sleeper team. They could knock you off. Don't sleep on them. And then Texas, that's really going to come down to how both teams have progressed to that point in the season. I believe that is it's game number 7. Again, that's just going to come down to how has that Texas offensive line progressed and how will they handle the Oklahoma State defensive line, which I believe is the strength of this Oklahoma State defense in 2022. After that, you play Kansas State and Kansas. Kansas State's, again, not a team that you want to just roll over. Iowa State, Oklahoma, and West Virginia. Oklahoma, I think, is still going to be pretty good this year. I did a preview video on them yesterday. I know rivals, I get it. You don't want to talk about it. But I still think Oklahoma is going to be pretty decent this year. With that being said, which means I think Baylor and Oklahoma are your losses. Again, I'm sorry. I know this is non-biased. This is just what I think as of August 24th. So I think those will be losses for Oklahoma State, which puts you at 10-2 best case. I think you lose a game that you probably shouldn't, win a couple games that you probably shouldn't as well. I'm going with Oklahoma State 9-3, so taking the over on the Oklahoma State 8.5 line. I know you probably won't agree with me. You may agree with the 9-3, but I know how you are. You're probably not going to agree with the loss to Oklahoma. But let me know in the comment section how you think this preview video went. Let me know if you agree with me on the record or the wins and losses against each team. Thank you guys for tuning in. Be sure to hit that subscribe button. We just passed 100 and we're already up to 112, I think, 2 days later. So thank you guys, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.